Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Ms. Marvel, which has just come to a close on Disney+. All 6 episodes are now out, and I really want to talk about spoilers for this show because I think this has been something that has been kind of under the radar for a lot of people. This show is very, very good. One of my favorite Disney Plus Marvel shows thus far, but also still has some of these same problems that the Marvel shows in general have had. And so first I want to talk about the things that I loved about this show because it has a similar tone and feel that I love from movies like Spider-Man Homecoming or like John Hughes type movies, just the high school comedies that I really, really do enjoy. And I think some people might think this show is a little bit too kiddie, a little bit too light in terms of like the intensity of it, but I really do like the smaller scale character-based stories, especially, in general. I love stories like that, but especially in the MCU, you don't really get a lot of stories like this. And I think the greatest thing about this show by far is Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan, as Ms. Marvel, and I just love her performance throughout every single episode of the show. She just has such an energy that she brings to the screen that reminded me a lot of Tom Holland when I first saw Spider-Man Homecoming. She just has this likability and this spirit that she plays with her character and this tone and the faces that she makes and the jokes that she makes and just the personality in general is so fun and so lighthearted and so just entertaining to watch her on screen for every second. Her charisma as this character is off the charts. I cannot wait to see this character interact with other characters in the MCU, specifically Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. I really want to see her and Brie Larson play off of each other because I feel like some things about the Captain Marvel movie, I really do like the Captain Marvel movie more than most people. I think that movie gets a lot of hate for some warranted reasons, and I think if you give her character bouncing back and forth between some really fun side characters, I think that could be really fun, specifically with Ms. Marvel and Kamala Khan. Just her personality bouncing with Brie Larson's, it's going to be really fun to see. Same thing with her bouncing off of Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau, and I think this trio that they're forming for the Marvels movie is just so exciting. The build-up for this is, I'm really hyped for it. I cannot wait, especially with Nia DaCosta being the director of the Marvels. I think when you have a director like that has a very distinct style, has a very distinct, want to create stories, and she's not going to get on any project that's not going to be something special. So I really am excited about the Marvels, and especially Iman Vellani's role in terms of the MCU in general and how she'll eventually probably be a part of the Young Avengers. And I cannot wait to see that because if it has this sort of tone and this sort of likability that this show has, I cannot wait for that. Another big plus for me about this show, like I said, character base. A lot of the family dynamics in this show has been wonderful. The actress playing the mom, Zenobia Shroff, is so good in this show. I loved her dynamic with her daughter and this, mother-daughter relationship that kind of grows and evolves throughout this entire season. I think my one flaw for it is she kind of accepted her as a superhero very fast. I think the whole family did. I think specifically her, I feel like would have had a little more trouble with it, but I really did like episode 5 and that journey through their past and through their family history and them accepting of what has all happened and how it has led to this point. I really enjoyed that. Like I said, that actress playing the mom was so good in her role. I just love this family dynamic, especially the dad and the daughter as well. There's a lot of great moments between, Iman Vellani talking with her parents in any given scene, some emotional, heartfelt scenes. There's one great scene in the finale with her and her dad on the rooftop, and he's saying what her name means, that it means wonder, that it means Marvel, and that's how she gets her Miss Marvel name. A lot of great small moments like that scattered throughout this entire finale, which I really appreciated. There's a point in the finale where they're all in the school, they're getting ready to perform their little Home Alone pranks on the Department of Damage Control that's all converging onto the school, and there's a moment between all the characters that get a moment to kind of talk to each other, even if it's just, some side characters that we haven't gotten a lot from, like Zoe or NAKIA, like these characters that really didn't get much to do with this show, which I think that would be my flaw with this season in general. And like I said, with the Marvel shows in general, where, you only have 6 episodes to do this, so it's more like an extended movie than an actual TV show, so you don't have so much time to kind of dive into these smaller character aspects of these side characters. You have a lot of time, so much time to focus on your main character, and I think that's what I love about these Disney Plus shows so much, because especially with Moon Knight and now this, you really get to know these new characters that had not previously been introduced in the MCU so far, so you get to really play in the sandbox of their characters and learn who they are, why they're going to be a great hero, get a sense of their personality and get a sense of their powers and abilities, and you really get to hone in on that. But there's a lot of side plots in this show that I was really interested in, like NAKIA kind of learning how to be more of a leader in her mosque, and that storyline with the culture aspects of being a part of a mosque and being a female in that mosque. That storyline was set up in the early episodes, and it never really went in depth with that stuff. She just kind of got the position. It wasn't really a fight for it, and then you see her kind of arguing with the other people in the mosque or trying to fight for the things and the changes that she wants, but you do never get to really dive into those storylines, which is a little bit of a bummer. But again, they kind of set up these characters in a way that puts him in a good position for another season, especially Bruno's character. I think Bruno had a decent amount to do, and that love triangle between him, Kamran, and Kamala was entertaining to see because I really was endeared to Bruno's character. I think I really connected with him. I think he was a very entertaining character to watch throughout this entire thing, and he was kind of the guy in the chair for Miss Marvel, and so I did enjoy his storyline, I did enjoy Kamran's storyline, and I enjoyed all these different things, but I wish we just had more time to kind of dive deeper into these side characters. I think my favorite episode of this show was definitely episode 5. Maybe it was episode 5, maybe the finale was really good. I really did enjoy the finale. Just a lot of episodes in the show were really, really solid, but episode 5 diving into the history and the past of Kamala's family and the cultural aspects of it and the real history in the partition and all the things with the great-grandmother in that 5th episode and how that story that they told where the grandmother was lost and she was led by a path of stars to get back to her family and how the great-grandmother was lost and all this sort of stuff, and having Kamala be launched back into the past to learn all these things, to guide her grandmother home, to see exactly what happened to her great-grandmother. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great history in episode 5, and I think that's kind of a formula that Marvel has with these MCU shows, like, you know, like Moon Knight, with episode 5 being the history episode. You learn a lot about the characters and the origins of the powers and a lot of these things that had been kind of hinted at in the early episodes, and so I really enjoyed that. And again, with this finale, with the really fun tone of the Home Alone type of storyline, you know, fighting against the Department of Damage Control, that was a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people had issues at the beginning of not knowing who the villain of the story was, and I think I really do appreciate a lot that the show doesn't really necessarily have a villain. You have the clandestines that, you know, you have the historical things with them, and you have the more cosmic elements of them being in a different dimension, which I think was kind of explained decently. I feel like I need to rewatch it again to kind of get a grasp on exactly how all that worked, but they weren't necessarily villains because they were not necessarily like unsympathetic characters. They honestly just really wanted to get home, and there's some sort of sympathy you can give for these characters, except for the way that they're going about it, trying to use Miss Marvel's powers, trying to use the bangle to try to get to what they want to do, and possibly unleashing their dimension onto ours. And so there's some elements of that was, you know, villainous, I guess you can say, but again, they weren't necessarily bad guys because Miss Marvel was related to them. She was a part of their history. She was a part of all this, and so she was one of them. So it's kind of taking away the stereotypes between, you know, the real world and how people perceive the Jinn as, and all these different things I thought was very interesting from a cultural standpoint. And again, the rivalry between the clandestines and the Red Daggers and all that stuff, where the Red Daggers also weren't the bad guys. At one point, you kind of think they're the bad guys, but no, they're the good guys, and there's kind of this rivalry between them. So a lot of interesting stuff that they could set up for a possible second season that I'd be very much interested in seeing. And so by the end of it, really the villainous element in this show was the perception of a Muslim hero to begin with. And I think that is an interesting direction to take this, you know, this show, because we're seeing a lot of that in the real world, seeing that, you know, you have a brown girl becoming a superhero and all the hate that the show is getting in our real world for absolutely no reason, all the review bombing. And I think I'm tempted to make a video about review bombing because I find it fascinating and really dumb, because what does it really do to review bomb something? Like, what are you really accomplishing? And it's really obvious when a show is actually review bombed. If you look at the IMDb and the ratings on the user scores and seeing that graph that you see, and you compare it to other, you know, shows or other movies or whatever that has a similar shaped graph, it doesn't line up. It's clearly review bombed. And so that sort of element I don't understand, because the show was so entertaining and so fun, and it kind of makes a point in the show that that's kind of hidden prejudice for Muslims and Arabic characters in film and media and in our real world is a very interesting villainous element to have. This woman from the Damage Control, I really hated her. She was a great villain to really hate because, you know, she was kind of not the focus in the first half, is more so the Jinn and all that stuff that was a focus in the first half, and then the second half really focused on Damage Control and finding out that the villainous elements you thought wasn't actually the villainous elements, and it really was the perception of those things that was a villainous element. So I loved how they kind of brought that together in the finale, and I loved how the guy from Spider-Man No Way Home was, you know, in Damage Control, and he was actually kind of a good guy in this because he was very clearly trying to get that woman to stop, going after these kids and shooting at them, which was just nuts. And just the evolution of Kamala's powers in this moment, for her actually getting her final form essentially and just kind of destroying all these damage control people at the end of the season, that was very entertaining to watch. I also really love her powers and her abilities and the way that they kind of evolved it from the comic to make it more cosmic in the show, because it makes more sense to tie her to Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel. And just the way that everything looked in this, I thought was very interesting. A very cool take that they took from the comics to kind of modernize it, to kind of bring it into a more cultural, meaningful way, and also bring it more into a meaningful way in terms of the MCU at large. And then of course you have that post-credit scene. I really did love this post-credit scene, because you have Iman Vélani, Kamala Khan is, laying on the bed, her mom is yelling at her to do her homework, and she gets up and her bangle starts, glowing, having these lights to it, and all of a sudden she flies through the closet and kind of teleports, and in her place teleports Brie Larson. She makes a cameo in this post-credit scene, and for one, I love the tone of this, because I feel like that's a very good indication of the tone of the Marvels, which just seems like a really fun cosmic adventure. But she's kind of popping into here. She sees all the fan art and all the fan posters that Kamala Khan has of her in her bedroom. She's like, oh no, like, who am I going to be dealing with now? And again, like I said, that personality difference between these two characters and how they can play off of each other just seems so fun. I cannot wait to see what is happening with this. It was a great indication of the tone of the Marvels, which I think is my most excited thing about this. And in terms of MCU at large, what did this show mean to the MCU? Well, it kind of, if you watch my review for Thor Love and Thunder, I said there's kind of 4 different branches that the MCU is doing right now, which is the Secret Wars storyline. They're doing the Young Avengers storyline, which I think this one plays a lot into. They're doing the Gods in the MCU storyline with Eternals and Thor Love and Thunder. And of course, they're doing the Thunderbolts as well. And so what is this show kind of pointing towards? Well, yes, it's Young Avengers, but they also give a hint at mutants in this. Bruno's character says that she had some things in her genetics that, he went back and kind of looked through things and figured out why her other family members couldn't do the things that she could do. It's because she had a mutation in her genes, which is the first name drop of mutations in the MCU, which is really exciting. I don't think anybody thought that Miss Marvel, of all the shows and of all the movies, would be the first one to kind of introduce the idea of mutants in our exact MCU universe. Not in, 838 in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but in the MCU that we've known and lived in for this entire time. So that is also a very exciting and very unexpected moment that is also very comic accurate, because I believe Miss Marvel, I think she's a mutant in the comics. I'm actually not sure, because I think her history ties more with Mr. Fantastic than it does with Captain Marvel, and so they kind of switch it around. She's still a mutant, but now she's more tied to the cosmic elements of this bangle and how it relates to Captain Marvel, which we will learn in the Marvels. So a lot of exciting stuff in this finale. So what did you guys think of Miss Marvel? I really enjoyed this season. I really hope they announce a season 2 at Comic-Con, because that would just be amazing. I'm sure we're going to see some footage from the Marvels later on this year, so I cannot wait to delve more into these stories, into these characters, into the family dynamics, which I really love so much. The brother, the mother, the dad, all of it was brilliant. I really like the friend group. There's so much to love in Miss Marvel. So what did you guys think of the show? Comment down below all your guys' thoughts on the post-credit scene and everything involved. And if you enjoyed this review, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one.